This seems like a pretty aggressive statement that Jesus makes here. Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. If you love son or daughter more than me, you aren't worthy of me. If you don't take up your cross and follow after me, you're not worthy of me. You don't get to go where I go. You don't get to come into the kingdom of God. If you love father, mother, son, daughter, or even your own life more than you love me. It seems like a radical statement that Jesus is making, but it's really not. I mean, any more than the radical statement of the gospel in the whole. First of all, is Jesus actually telling us not to love mother or father? No. Is he telling us not to love our sons or daughters? And he's not telling us don't love your life. If you look at what Jesus says, whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. If you consider the word find to say to cling to, whoever clings to his life will lose it. That is to say, whoever does whatever is necessary just to hang on to life will surely do something evil, something wrong, something out of priority, out of order, and they'll lose their eternal life with me. And whoever loses or who refuses to cling to life for my sake, I will give that life back to them. Well, who's this Jesus anyways, though, to say whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me? When we think about our experience in life, there's no person or group of people to whom we owe more loyalty and more affinity to than our families. So who's Jesus to tell me not to love my family more than anybody? And consider, too, who he's talking to tribal folk, right? I mean, he's talking to people for whom family is life. You get cut off from your family, you're donezo, right? Well, Jesus asks this question to his disciples, doesn't he? He takes them up in another place to Caesarea Philippi, which, of course, there's nothing in Caesarea Philippi. It would be like us leaving Ackworth, the last perimeter of civilization, and you go up 75 to nothing, to nothing, to nothing, and then you get to Dalton, which itself isn't all that impressive. But there you are, you're in Dalton. Going to Caesarea Philippi would be something similar to that. It would take several days to walk there from the last bastion of civilization on the perimeter of the northern kingdom. And you'd walk up there, and there's nothing up there, really, except for one really important thing. And this is why he takes Peter, James, John, and the other apostles up there on this long trip out of the way. There's a big cliff, and on the top of that cliff is a big temple, pagan temple. And what they would do at that pagan temple is they'd do what they do in every pagan temple. They'd slaughter stuff, right? And then they would offer it to the god of that temple. They would usually burn it and offer it up to whomever. In this particular temple, they dropped it off the cliff into a river that sucked it under the rock into hell, into Hades. It was an offering to death. It was a temple dedicated to death, to Hades. And so when Jesus stood there and said one particular thing to Peter, after he made his exclamation to the question of Jesus, who do people say that I am? Jesus says, you are Peter, and upon this rock, this cliff, I will build my church, this temple, so that the gates of hell, down there, will not prevail against it. He took them all the way up there just to say that one word to Peter. Because it was that important, that his church, the power of his church, will overcome death, be stronger than Hades, and that the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Well, anyways, so among that conversation, or during that conversation, he says to Peter and to his apostles, who do people say that I am? Now, he's not asking that question like so many social media-ites ask it, hoping that other people will tell them who they are, as if Jesus doesn't know who he is. He knows who he is. He's the great I am. He's hoping to find out if other people know who he is, because knowing who he is the key to that life that overcomes death. So it's really important that people know who he is. And knowing who he is the only way we can make sense of this statement, love me more than your mama and papa. Love me more than your children. Who do people say that I am? We finally get around to the right answer. Thank you, Peter. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And upon that testimony does God build his church. You are God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten, not made, consubstantial with the Father. Jesus says, the Father and I are one. If you have seen me, you have seen the Father. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. And so when Jesus says, anyone who loves father or mother, son or daughter, or even their very life more than me is not worthy of me, all he's saying is love the Lord your God with all your heart, strength, soul, and mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. This grand statement of Jesus that seems to threaten our life with one another is nothing more than the very action that allows us to love our neighbor as ourselves. Because what happens when we live life the way that we have been living it so recklessly in society today, stripping away the first half of the greatest commandment, of which that part it is said it is the greatest of the two commandments. We remove love the Lord your God with all your heart, strength, soul, and mind, because religion is nice and all until it's inconvenient. If something can be jettisoned when it's inconvenient, it's not worth a damn. Just get rid of it. All outright. And that's what we've done. And so we're left with love your neighbor as yourself. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want any of you to love me the way that you love yourself. Because if you look around, people are not loving themselves very well. They hate themselves. They look in the mirror and they reproach themselves. They fail to develop their character through discipline so that they're full of vice and viciousness. They're controlled by the whim of passion that some Yahoo on TikTok or whatever, I don't know, I don't use these things, you shouldn't either, that says you should do. And so you go and do it. This is how you should dress, so you dress that way. This is what you should eat, so you diet that way. This is how you should relate to others. You're letting ignorant people who cannot hold a job and succeed in life, but can show their face on the interwebs, tell you how to relate to other people. Well done. Right? Not y'all, but us. I don't want you to love me that way. And I hope you don't try to love others that way. But if that's the way you love yourself, that's going to be the only way that you know to love other people, and that's going to hurt them. And they're going to try to love you back in a way in the way that they've been hurt, and it's going to hurt you. And we're going to live in a world where love means selfishness, where love means get what I can from others, and then I'm going to try to say, well, I need to love other people that way. And we're all going to be in debt. We're all going to be impoverished. We're all going to be poor and broke, spiritually and emotionally and relationally. All because we've done these things out of priority. All because we've said, no, I need to love my family more than anything else. No, I need to love my kids more than anything else. No, I need to love my job, or I need to love my sports, or I need to love myself more than anything else. And God says to us, if you would just love me first and above everything else, you would actually be able to love those things well. Jesus isn't saying don't love your mom and dad. He's saying love your mom and dad the best way that you can by loving me first. Love your children, but love your children in the way that you have learned that I love you. So that in being loved by me, you'll know how to love others. You cannot love others if you don't first love me and receive love from me. You simply won't know how to do it. That evil, wicked, vacuous slogan, love is love, that's floating around out there, it's an instruction manual for hell. Unless it says God is love, and love that way, it will only lead you down the road to perdition. This bumper sticker, coexist, that puts all things on an even plane and throws them all out the door so that we can just get along, which says that our social concord is the highest good in the world, not nobility, not courage, not grace, certainly not God, is chapter 2 to the recipe book for the road to perdition. You cannot love, y'all, if you do not first love God, if you do not love God first. If you do not love something more than yourself. If you're not willing to give up your life for that thing that you love more, you're never going to be the kind of person who can give themselves in love to another person. Love hurts. The word love that I'm talking about here, charity, true love, not effective love, true love, has to hurt. If it doesn't hurt you, you're not loving, because that kind of love necessitates a gift of self, a pouring out of self, an emptying of self for the sake of the other. It looks like that. That's the greatest act of charity. But every littler act of charity that we do for one another each and every day is the same kind of thing. It has to cost us something. And if we don't understand how to do that, we won't be able to do it. We won't be able to love people the way that they need to be loved if we do not first love God, love Jesus above all else. This is going to cost us something. It's going to be a martyrdom lifestyle. You don't need a bunch of Romans running around with spears and swords trying to capture you and bring you into an arena and put a sword to your throat and say, denounce Jesus or else. You don't have to have that to live a martyrdom lifestyle. We live a martyrdom lifestyle just by being Christians walking out the door, don't we? Now listen, I've done it again. This is a qualifier that I found it timely to make this weekend before I go into specific details on how the Lord is inviting us to live a martyrdom lifestyle today. And it's this: I know that I have RBF. It's not news to me, and it shouldn't be news to y'all. Recently, I have been personally hurt, wounded by some words that people have said that have really pierced my priestly heart. And saying that when I get excited, or when I get going, it comes across as angry and hateful. Hey, imagine being a priest, right? And hearing that somebody, the only way that they have given enough of themselves to relate to you is to think that you're angry and hateful. I mean, if the only experience of me, or really any priest that you have, is coming in a little late to Mass and leaving a little early before Mass is over every day, and you only see us doing this formal thing here called preaching, where John Vianney himself says, be a lion in the pulpit and a lamb in the confessional. Or offering this sacrifice here, where my job, that the only thing you see of me is offering a slaughtered victim to the Father. Well, yeah, I could see that, given the fact that it hurts me to smile. It's like cracking, like scar tissue to get it up there. I mean, you guys know me well, and but here's the thing: I do recognize that when I get excited, I can get loud and I can get forceful and but it's not yelling at y'all. It's because I love you so much that I want all this beauty and goodness to just like be in you. And I'm doing the best I can to like get it there. Right? And so that's hard, and I do it imperfectly, but I want y'all to know that when I get excited, and maybe my face doesn't reflect the smile that I have, for whatever reason, It's not because I'm mad at you or I'm yelling at you or I'm hateful of the message. The gospel is a beautiful thing, but it demands a great deal of us. And if you're a parent, you know that sometimes you have to tell your kids things they don't want to hear. And they're going to say, I hate you. Why are you so mean and hateful, Mom and Dad? And then they're going to storm off and slam the door until they get hungry, and then they're going to come out and ask you for food. And so that's what we do. We try to have fun, we try to joke, but the important thing is the message of the gospel. Because if we don't have that, we have nothing. And we might be able to make it through life a little at a time without the gospel. We might, but we won't make it to heaven. The Lord wants us in heaven, and so he gave us his Son, the one way, truth, and life to get there. We need to have the gospel. And the gospel is not Jesus licking a lollipop in a farting sunshine. It's real. It's life. The life we live here and now is a matter of life and death for eternity. And I take that very seriously because I want you there. And I want to be there with you. And God's going to be real mad at me if I don't tell you the truth and you don't get there. He might not let me in for that. And I'm not letting you keep me out of heaven. I'm doing that well enough myself. So as I move into these examples of the way that we are invited by the Lord to take up our cross and follow him, know that I'm not mad or angry at anybody. These are difficult things. They cost us. They cost us things that we oftentimes think are the most important thing, because they cost us sometimes relationships with our families. But our family is not the most important thing. To love and to live with Jesus and never leave him because others might leave him is the most important thing. So how might we do this, right? Some of us have family members who have stopped practicing the faith. And when they come to visit, we might be tempted to not go to Mass, to show hospitality to them, to not make them feel uncomfortable because we're going to Mass and they're not. We're choosing them over Jesus. Sometimes we think to ourselves, my child's success in sports is going to be the most important thing to set him on a trajectory to success in the world. And so if we can't make it to Mass one Sunday or two or 4 out of the week or out of the month so that he can go to his sports or she can go to her sports, I'm loving her the right way that I need to. Or we're going to miss Mass and we're going to go to practice or games. Nope. That's the wrong way to do that. Right? Well, my job is really important. I can't risk my job. I love my job and I love my family, and my job is for my family. So I have to go along to get along at work. And so I'm willing to bear false witness and offend the Lord Jesus by calling Mr. Humperdinck in accounting she, her, because that's what he would like me to do. That would be bearing false witness. That would be gravely sinning. That would be unlovable, an unlovable act. And you'd be leaving Jesus for the sake of professional concord, to keep your job, to keep feeding your family, because these are all the things that are more important than Jesus, but they're not. Being willing to sacrifice little or great to live in the life of Jesus is the most important thing. To tell your kids, to teach your kids that commitment is very, very important. And you should be committed to your team, but you are committed to Jesus first. You are committed to Jesus at the day of your baptism, and it is to him and his team that you owe the greatest loyalty. And so we will live our Christian life first, and then if we have time for sports, we'll do that. God made all people, man and woman alike. And that diversity of man and woman must be respected and defended and not confused. And we as Christians must find it our task to live in the world in a way that brings reason and sense to a crazy and chaotic and confused world. And if we suffer for that, we take up our cross and we follow Jesus. How many of y'all are fathers here? How many of you have daughters? How many of you grow exhausted at telling her you are not wearing that out of the house? And Joseph. And why do you tell her that? You tell her that because you love her. You tell her that because she is precious. You tell her that because she is valuable and she is vulnerable and because you know it even if she doesn't. And the day you stop saying you're not wearing that out of the house is the day you have stopped loving your daughter the way she needs you to love her. Because you are sacrificing her welfare, her preciousness, her value, her lovability, her princessness of God for the sake of your own fatigue and family concord. These are little things, right? The little things in life that exhaust us. Oftentimes we just say to ourselves, man, that's it, I'm done. I'm done. The day we do that, though, y'all, the day we do that is the day we stop loving people the way that we need to love them. The way that we leave Jesus to live in concord with other people who are not living with Jesus is the day that we stop loving. The day that we let people walk away from Jesus and not say anything because we just don't want to deal with it is the day that we stop loving the way that they need us to love them. God is love. My own personal appetite, my own personal rest, my own personal safety, my own personal comfort is not love. That's what we mean when we say love is love. That's what we mean. That's not love. God is love. That's God right there. And it's God who says, if you want to love mother and father well, if you want to love son and daughter well, if you want to love your own life well, love me first. Love me above all else. Do what you know is true and good and beautiful, even if it costs you everything, even if it costs you your family. Do not abandon me, and I will not abandon you. Do not cling to your life so tightly that you would do anything to keep it, because in doing anything to keep it, you will lose grace and salvation. But let go of your life. Entrust it to me. Live according to the way that I have shown you. And even if you lose it, for my sake, you will find it forever in heaven.